All right, Laura, what's our theme of the week?
Our theme of the week is we are going to be going through a guide, if you will, of the passenger arrival card. So coming to New Zealand, it might not be as straightforward as you're used to in other countries. When you come to New Zealand, New Zealand has a very fragile ecosystem, also some customs requirements and various health requirements sometimes that you do need to be aware of when you're coming to New Zealand. And the way that they sort of go through that whole process, the start of this whole process of arriving is with the passenger arrival card. Which you complete on your final flight as you are heading towards New Zealand.
All right, and so we will go over all the pages of the passenger arrival card, helping you with every single one of the questions that you will be asked, just to ease that pain when coming and arriving in New Zealand. But before we begin, I would like to quickly address the New Zealand Travelers Declaration. So if you've heard about the New Zealand Travelers Declaration or the Traveller Pass, this has been sunsetted. So in short, it's no longer in application since the 20th of October 2022. So you don't have to worry about that. The only thing you have to worry about is the New Zealand passenger arrival card. With that out of the way, let's get started. Okay, so the first thing that we wanted to talk about is when you're going to need your passenger arrival card, that card I was showing you guys earlier. So when you arrive in an airport in New Zealand, you will basically off-board the plane, and you're going to show your passport and do all that. And then you're going to have a section which is the part where there is Customs New Zealand, where your bags are going to be inspected. And this is when you need that declaration. This is when they're going to take it, ask you a few questions about it, and make sure which box you have ticked and ask you follow-up questions on that. So do be aware that this is the time when that's going to be asked to you. And this video was made by beautiful NZ Customs. Is it easy to find where you need to give the paper?
Yeah, so basically where you need to show your passport, that's when it's a good time to just keep your passenger arrival card in hand. So first of all, when you arrive just off your flight, the first thing you're going to do is go through passport control. So for most nationalities, actually, you can just go through the e-gate, which is an automatic system where they scan your passport. At this point, you won't need to show your passenger arrival card. You just scan your passport and continue to the baggage claim area. However, if you are going manually, doing a manual check-in where one of the immigration officers will be checking your passport, they may ask for your passenger arrival card at that point. So that's why it's just handy to have it on hand with your passport, like for this whole sort of section as you're arriving in New Zealand.
All right.
So shall I continue after the baggage claim?
Yeah, go for it.
So you go to the baggage claim, you pick up all your checked-in luggage, and once you've got all your baggage, that's when you move on to the sort of second section where you're going to have your passenger arrival card checked, and that is biosecurity and customs. So there's going to be a few different queues. If you're at the Auckland airport, that is, they have different lines for whether you have things to declare or not. For most people do have things to declare, so that's usually quite a long queue. So pop into there, and then once you are called by one of the biosecurity officers at the front of the line, you just go up to their desk, and they'll check your passenger arrival card, and they'll just ask you some questions based on the answers that you have given.
All right, so this video was made by NZ Customs, and we thank them for sharing it with us. That's it. Moving on. Alright, so the first thing that we wanted to mention about the passenger arrival card, is that New Zealand is currently rolling out a digital version of it. So you may not need, by the time you watch this, you may not need to do it on paper anymore. You may only need to be doing it digitally. Although those papers are still going to be given to you in your flight for the foreseeable future. Let's be honest, some people may not have done it online and everything, so instead of being giving this in your flight, you may be able to do it online. So at the moment, only passengers, and we're recording that in July 2023, only passengers arriving in Wellington and in Christchurch Airport from overseas are able to complete a digital version of the arrival declaration card instead of the paper one. So if you want to opt in and do it digitally, you can do so, but you have to land in Wellington and Christchurch to do so. Otherwise, you know, if you're arriving in Auckland, if you're arriving in Queenstown, you still need to do it on paper. They're slowly rolling it out, so we expect them to have rolled it fully out, you know, by the end of the year, digitally. So that means that everybody will be able to do it digitally if needed. It's not mandatory to do it digitally yet. It is still mostly a paper form, and we'll look at the paper form throughout this video. That said, all the questions remain exactly the same. Okay, so this is the first page of the New Zealand passenger arrival card. So what does it say on the top, Laura?
So first you are given some instructions for how to complete the passenger arrival card. It also says, you know, it's a legal document, be truthful. Otherwise you could get a fine at the airport.
Up to $400.
So yeah, just always, yeah, it's just basically it's a legal document. And it also asks that you complete the form in capital letters and in English. And mark answers where you have check boxes, like check circles more. They're not really boxes, they're circles in some areas. Where you need to check yes or no. You do it with a tick.
Okay, they say a tick, not a cross. Okay, so let's go over the first section. So the section number 1, as you can see, there is a little square on the left right here that says number 1. The first question is your flight number, the name of the ship. So that will be like, you know, you will find that on your ticket, on your boarding pass, and it's going to be, as an example, NZ123 if it's a flight with Air New Zealand. The next thing that you ask to answer is your aircraft seat number. So that will be literally where you are sitting, and same thing, you can find that on your passenger boarding pass. So for example, that would be 12B. Then you have to put the overseas port where you boarded this aircraft. So do not write USA, for example, write New York. So where did you actually board your plane?
Yeah.
Then you need to put your passport number, so you'll be able to find that on your passport. And so, you know, just write down whatever your passport number is. Then your nationality as shown on your passport. So even if you have 2 nationalities, you need to use the nationality and the passport number that kind of match the one you use to book this flight. So if you booked it under your US passport, then you do everything under your US passport. Then you're going to put your family name, which is your last name, and then your given or first name. And so that is like Robin. Don't write Robin, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Then you're going to be putting your date of birth. And so we are using the system that is the logical one. We do day, month, and year, but it's written on the paper. So day is going to be 2 numbers, month is going to be 2 numbers, and year is going to be 4 numbers. Then you put your country of birth, same thing, that should be written on your passport if you can't remember. Then you put your occupation, that doesn't really matter, just put whatever job you did last, or even...
Or if you don't have a job, it's okay.
Tourists,
it's okay to put unemployed if you don't have a job.
It's absolutely fine.
Living the good life, just put unemployed, you know.
Yeah, then you ask your full contact and residential address in New Zealand. If you do not have a residential address for the rest of your time in New Zealand, it's absolutely fine, just put your first hotel address. So the first time, the first place you're going to go at. Then you put your email address and your phone number. If your phone number is overseas, just make sure you put like +01, for example, if you're in the US. And that is it. You are done with the first section of the form. Good job. All right. So should we go to page number 2, Laura?
Sure.
Okay. What about... Okay, let's start with page number 2, Laura. What about you? Read the questions and I'll give the answers.
Yeah, so for question 2A on the next side of the form, the question is, answer this section if you live in New Zealand, otherwise go to 2B.
So for most of you guys, just go to 2B. It's as simple as that. You don't have to write anything. Just move on.
Yeah, move on. And at 2B question is, answer this question if you do not live in New Zealand.
Okay, so the question, if you do not live in New Zealand, the first thing that you have to do is...
how long do you intend to stay in New Zealand?
So if you're immigrating in New Zealand, obviously you need to check the box that says permanently. Otherwise, just put your planned stay. And if you're not 100% sure, let's say you're coming on a working holiday visa, and you can stay up to 12 months, right? Just per 12 months, and you know it's fine. You're on a working holiday visa, they will see that you have the right to do that, so that's fine. So yeah, or if you're traveling in New Zealand for a week, just put 7 days and you're all sorted. What's next?
Next is, if you are not staying permanently, what is your main reason for coming to New Zealand?
Okay, so you have a bunch of options: visiting friend and relative, business, holiday vacation, conference, convention, education, or other. Okay, if you're on a working holiday visa, as a reminder, the main purpose of your trip to New Zealand should be to holiday in New Zealand with work as a second purpose. Therefore, the main purpose should be holiday vacation. If you're coming as a tourist in New Zealand, make sure that you put holiday vacation. And yeah, aside from that, obviously tick the one that is the most appropriate. But for most people, it's going to be holiday vacations.
Yeah. The next question is, in which country did you last live for 12 months or more?
Okay, so this is to help them see if there is any kind of disease in the country you've stayed for a while or something that you need to be worried about. So literally just in the last 12 months, where did you stay for the most time? So yeah, right, USA, if you're from the US, then you have to state your state, province or prefecture, so New York State for instance, and your zip code. Moving on to question 3.
Question 3, everybody has to answer this question, which is list the countries you have been in during the past 30 days.
So if within the past 30 days you actually have traveled in different countries, right? That usually doesn't include if you actually just changed plane and stay in the Dubai airport. You don't necessarily have to write that, but if you went outside, if you actually did travel a little bit around, if you did a bit of a stint in Asia before coming to New Zealand, then you do have to list that. It's an open kind of field, so you can list as many countries as you want. And same thing, they just want to check that you haven't been to places where there is, I don't know, the avian flu or this or that, and they just want to make sure about that.
And if you've only been in one country because you were just at home for the past how many every day? 30 days. If you were just at home, you can just list the one country.
That is it.
Yeah.
Moving on, question 4.
Question 4 is, do you know the contents of your baggage?
So we're starting the first yes, no kind of questions, and you're going to have a very long list of those. So yeah, obviously you need to know the content of your luggage because you pack them yourself. So check yes. I mean, you have to. No, if you don't travel with luggage, you don't know. That's simple. Moving on. Question 5.
Yes, question 5 is, are you bringing into New Zealand?
All right, and so then you have a list. Let's get started.
Okay, so first it's any food. So this is including cooked, uncooked, fresh, preserved, packaged, or dried.
So again, it's any food. So you have to declare that you're bringing any food in New Zealand. So the answer, if you have any type of edible, is to check yes. Otherwise, you can check no.
Yeah. Next is animals or animal products, including meat, dairy products, fish, honey, bee products, eggs, feathers, shells, raw wool, skins, bones, or insects.
So if you're bringing any of those, or even any derivative from that, right? Like for example, let's say bones, right? If you do have a necklace, which is bone carving, that is still bone, right? So you need to check yes on that. Otherwise, check no.
Next is plants or plant products. So that includes fruit, flowers, seeds, bulbs, wood, bark, leaves, nuts, vegetables, parts of plants, fungi, cane, bamboo, or straw, including for religious offerings or for medicinal use.
Exactly. So if you have a powder of some kind, which is like a wood bark powder or whatever, like fish powder, those kind of things, this still applies, right? If you have any kind of woven hat, which is palm woven or something like that, this still apply as well. So you've got to check yes.
Yeah. And just to reiterate, just to tell people, you have to declare all this stuff, but it doesn't mean that it's completely banned from the country.
Yes,
so
they just want to check it.
Don't worry about that.
Yeah. All right, that's the end of page 2. All right, should we do the next page?
Yes, let's.
All right, so on the next page, that's page number 3 right here. We're starting with a continuation of question 5, isn't it?
Yes, it is a continuation of question 5, and it concerns other biosecurity risk items, which includes, are you ready for the list? Any medicines, biological...
No, animal.
Oh, sorry. Animal animal medicines, biological cultures, organisms, soil, or water.
So that's probably going to be no for the vast majority of travelers. The one that would be biological culture would be if you're traveling with
Kombucha.
yeah, kombucha, or even the kind of the things to make the cheese, right? You can put some
cultures.
Yeah, cultures to
yeah,
make cheese and everything. But why would you anyway? Moving on. Just check no on this one. Come on.
Unless you have
Yeah,
such
obviously,
things,
if you have such, or if you really haven't watched your feet for so long and you have biological culture in between your toes.
Yeah, if you literally have soil still on your shoes, you know, that's also what they're kind of asking.
Exactly, so do make sure that, and we'll talk about that actually in the next question.
Next is equipment/clothing used with animals, plants or water, including for gardening, beekeeping, fishing, water sport or diving activities.
Okay, so if you do come to New Zealand with snorkeling gears, with fins, with a camping tent, with a sleeping bag, with hiking shoes, those kind of things need to be declared. The only thing that's going to happen at that point is they're going to ask you to show it to them, and they're going to look that there's no extra dirt on there. And if there is, they're literally going to give you a brush and ask you to brush them up.
The thing that we do when we arrive back in New Zealand is we usually have those hiking shoes. Actually, this is more concerning the next point, but we actually have those hiking shoes or walking shoes on our feet. So when they ask to see them, we literally just lift up our feet and say, this is the shoes that you were asking about. So if you do have any items that you think will be likely to be checked by biosecurity in New Zealand, or that you'll have to declare, it's always easier to have them somewhere quite easy to access.
We tend to do one of our carry-on bag is just full of those, and so like that we just have one to open.
Yeah. Next on the list is items that have been used for outdoor activities, including any footwear, tents, camping, hunting, hiking, golf, or sports equipment.
So that's basically what I was mentioning before. Anything that you may use for outdoor recreational purposes, make sure that you check yes if you are bringing any of those. And again, the only thing that's going to happen, they're going to look at them to see if they're being properly cleaned. That is a good segue for us to tell you to make sure to actually clean them. Make sure that whatever you're bringing in your bag is actually clean, because otherwise you're just going to have to clean stuff outside, and it's not that fun. All right.
Next up is, in the past 30 days, while outside of New Zealand, have you visited any wilderness areas, had contact with animals, except domestic cats and dogs, or visited properties that farm or process animals or plants?
So that's to tell them basically what to look for when looking at your equipment and then when looking at your gears. So do make sure that you answer that truthfully. It's yes or no. Moving on to question number 6.
Question number 6 is more concerning things to do with customs in New Zealand rather than biosecurity. And again, it's asking you what you're bringing in. So are you bringing into New Zealand? First up, medicine. Over 3 months supply or medicine not prescribed to you. So
it's really important if you bring a medicine to New Zealand to actually bring your prescription with you in order to show that this has been prescribed to you. If possible, bring that prescription in English. And even when we're talking about contraceptive pills, if you bring in more than 3 months, just because you don't want to have the hassle of having to deal with that when coming to New Zealand, when being in New Zealand, do make sure that you answer that truthfully and try to stick to the 3 months supply, just to actually avoid having to kind of deal with that nonsense of customs. Moving on, next up.
Next up is restricted or prohibited goods. For example, weapons, indecent publications, endangered plants or wildlife, illegal or controlled drugs.
So literally, we joked about every single one of those at some point during this live chat. But don't bring any of those kind of things. And if you do, declare them so you avoid facing prosecution.
Yes, but ideally just don't bring those specific things in.
No, that'd be nuts. Don't.
Next is alcohol. More than 3 bottles of spirits, not exceeding 1.125 litres each, and 4.5 litres of wine or beer. So that's basically the duty-free allowance.
That's basically your duty-free allowance. So on this one here, if you bring in more than that, you may be able to keep them. You will just have to pay duty on it. So you have to pay basically the taxes on that. And that leads to the next segue, which is all about
tobacco. So more than 50 cigarettes or 50 grams of tobacco products, including a mixture of cigarettes and other tobacco products.
All right, if you do bring more than that, you'll have to pay duty on the remaining above. So make sure you declare it, because if they find it on you, then they're really going to be like, this is something that everybody knows. You're going to get a fine, and that's going to be more than the $400.
Yes. Next is goods obtained overseas and/or purchased duty-free in New Zealand with the total value of more than 700 New Zealand dollars, including gifts.
All right, so that's basically kind of like any kind of items which are still kind of packaged, right? So if it's something that is used and that you're using, it's kind of like, it's fine. You know, your cell phone is probably going to be more than 700 New Zealand dollars. So those kind of things, you don't necessarily have to declare them. But goods, anything which is still packaged, like, you know, you say, oh, it's for gift and I have like a present for this 3 or 4 or 5 family members that you have and that you're going to be visiting. Even if they're packaged and they could be considered something that you may try to resell, basically you've got to declare it.
Next is, well, that was more specific to duty-free goods.
Yeah.
Next is goods carried for business or commercial use.
So speaking of reselling, anything that you probably will want to use, resell or anything like that, you will need to declare it.
Goods carried on behalf of another person.
Why would you do that?
I don't know, do them a favour?
No, that's crazy. You need to know what's packaged. You don't know if they're not going to line it with crazy things.
Yeah.
No, I've watched the TV shows.
And next is cash. So 10,000 New Zealand dollars or more, or the foreign equivalent, including traveller's checks, bank drafts, money orders, etc.
Who use traveller's checks nowadays? But yeah, so if you are bringing more than $10,000 in cash and currencies, any kind of different currency that you're using, you will need to declare it, as there is some restrictions in how much cash you can carry around due to money laundering laws.
Yes.
All right, let's move on to question number 7.
Okay, question number 7 is, do you hold a current New Zealand passport, a residence class visa, or returning residence visa? If yes, go to 10. Next is, are you...
No, wait. So on this one here is basically if you are on any other type of visa. So basically you're watching this because you're probably a traveler coming to New Zealand. So the answer is no right here, because you do not have a residence visa or returning resident visa. So you will need to check no on this one.
Next is, are you a New Zealand citizen using a foreign passport? If yes, also go to 10.
Okay, you're probably going to have to check no on this one for the same circumstances.
Yep. Next is, do you hold an Australian passport, Australian permanent residence visa, or Australian resident return visa? If yes, go to 9.
All right, so if you are holding, if you're Australian, basically, you get to skip the queue and do some less questioning. Okay, that's the end of page 3 of the New Zealand Travelers Declaration card. Let's move on. And we're going to celebrate Rick, which is our newest Patreon member. I just got a boop on the phone right here. So welcome, Rick. Welcome on board.
Yeah, nice.
You will have another hour of this show actually coming up right after this one, where we'll hang out and look at some photos actually today. So that's going to be fun. I will check on Facebook to see if you have asked to join the group, because this is where you're going to get the link. Okay, last page of the declaration. So we're starting with question number 8.
Okay, question number 8 is all others. So basically all others that didn't answer the previous question. You must leave New Zealand before expiry of your visa or face deportation. Are you coming to New Zealand for medical treatment or consultation or to give birth?
So the answer should be no right here. I mean, New Zealand is not a destination where you can come and use the medical facilities. So the answer should be no right here. But then you have to select one. What are the 2 things you have to select?
One. I hold a temporary entry class visa. Tick yes if you currently hold a visa, even if it is not attached as a label to your passport. Or I do not hold a visa and I am applying for a visitor visa on arrival.
Okay, so I hold a temporary entry-class visa. It's kind of all your type of visas, which are like everything from a working holiday visa to an actual visitor visa if you had to apply for a visitor visa before coming to New Zealand, and all of the other kind of visa that you can get. However, if you haven't applied for a visa, therefore, even if you're coming because your country doesn't need a visa to visit New Zealand, let's say you're coming just for six months or
but you had to do the NZETA.
But you had to do the NZETA, yeah? What do you tick?
Then you tick, I do not hold a visa and I am applying for a visitor visa on arrival.
Here you go. So even if you had to do the NZETA, you've got to tick that you do not have it. It's just an automatic process. You won't have to sit down and do a full visa application.
No.
Don't panic. But it's just what you have to
basically
tick.
so they can put the stamp in your passport.
Exactly.
And that's as quick as it will be.
All right. Question number 9.
Question number 9 is, have you ever been sentenced to 12 months or more in prison or been deported, removed or excluded from any country at any time?
So if you're Laura, you say yes to all, but if you're a nice person, you need to check no. But if that has happened to you before, you need to check yes. It doesn't mean that you will be denied entry to New Zealand, but they're just going to be looking into what happened.
Yeah. And for number 10, finally, or the final question is, I declare that the information I have given is true and complete.
It's not really a question. They're just going to ask you to sign and to put the dates right here. And if you are traveling with somebody which is under 18, you are signing for them as their legal guardian. So here you go. After that, there is a little bit of information about what is the information that you are providing going to be used for. It's more of an informational kind of a piece of information, so you can't come in without doing that declaration. So you've got to say yes and say, well, thank you very much for gathering all my information and keeping it forever for your statistics, and easy to be hacked by hackers. Yay!
One more thing is that passenger arrival cards must be completed for everyone. Even if you are traveling with children, infants, you have to complete a passenger arrival card for them as well.
All right, so that's everything you need to know about the traveler passenger arrival card. And yeah, if you do have any extra questions, there is a link in the description of this video with the full article and with PDF version of this one. And you can also contact New Zealand Customs. They have a great website with plenty of information there. In the meantime, make sure to like, subscribe, and yeah, we got plenty of other videos on the channel. What about you check them out?